Conflicts are never good, and with everything going on in Ukraine right now, my heart is breaking thinking that there are people who are getting misplaced and hurt because of this. However, bad times like this are also an opportunity for people to help those in need, and while BTS is very well known for being very generous during trying times like this, the boys are noticeably absent from the long list of celebs who already made donations for the country, especially after a photo of J-Hope's birthday ad on a metro in Ukraine trended in the midst of the controversy. I know, many armies are already wondering what's taking the boys so long, but don't worry, I got a few things that might shed some light into this situation. Okay, let's go over them one by one. And number 5, because it's too controversial. If you've been a fan for a long time, I'm sure you already know how the K-pop industry is very sensitive about matters they deem too political, too controversial, or just anything that is too much for them to digest. This is the very reason why idols are careful with anything they say when they are interviewed or just whenever they are out in public. Don't even get me started with their cancel culture because seriously, it needs to stop. Remember when they targeted Jungkook because of the Itaewon scandal, or when they criticized the boys for allegedly being misogynist because of baseless accusations? And since we can all agree that what's happening in Ukraine is a very serious matter, which can be distorted into anything offensive by close-minded people, to say BTS needs to check if the coast is clear first is an understatement, especially when it's not impossible that they'll target the boys once more if they step up and talk about this matter. Maybe this is also the reason why BTS haven't made a move yet, since the last thing they want is getting unnecessary negativity ahead of their scheduled comeback. But I'm not trying to say that they're doing this to save face, it's just that there's always a perfect time for everything. This leads us to our next point. At number 4, there's always a time for everything. BTS just wrapped up their PTZ Seoul concerts and probably gearing up for their album release and world tour next. So to say they are booked and busy is not an exaggeration. I bet they haven't rested properly yet, so maybe we can give them a few more days to recover. And since BTS never do things half-heartedly, I think we can all agree that they are still in the process of preparing the things they need to make things go smoothly. I know there will be some of you thinking, they only need to click a few buttons to send millions of dollars, what's taking them too long? Well, I'm sad to break it to you, but the boys aren't like that. Having a lot of money doesn't mean you don't have to make hard decisions, right? BTS aren't new when it comes to donating money for relevant causes. For example, they donated approximately 1 million for the Black Lives Matter movement, but I'm sure they didn't just decide to do that overnight. When asked about it, Jin shared via Variety that he feels very deeply about the prejudice people of color are facing. Saying more about it, he said, quote, "We feel that prejudice should not be tolerated. It really has no place. We started to discuss what we could do to help, whether it was a donation or something else." The leader added that it was something they decided to as a group, saying, quote, "It was this decision we thought about very carefully. What could we do as part of our overall message of speaking out against prejudice and violence? We discussed it very carefully with the company, and that's how this came about." So maybe they are still in this discussion, since choosing what move to do next is pretty hard, especially when you are BTS, because it's very likely that everyone will be watching every step you take, and when I say literally, I mean it. Moving to my next point, at number 3, it doesn't align with their principles. Okay, this might be very unlikely since the boys are way too caring and sweet to choose who to help, but if we go back to Jin's statement above, you can tell how the boys really consider the effects of the cause they are fighting for. And while wars and conflict should be addressed at all costs, there are people who would rather choose not to dip their fingers in very depressing things like that. Of course, this includes BTS, since they are humans as well. But since we're talking about BTS, I think we can check this off our list for now. And number 2, they're gearing up for something big. Since the boys haven't addressed the issue just yet, fans are getting pretty anxious. And while the boys don't have any responsibility to feel like they need to talk about the matter, you can't blame armies for wondering why, because the boys are pretty vocal with matters like this. However, Suga had shared during the Variety interview that they don't want to speak the politicians since they obviously aren't running for a position in the government. What I'm saying is that maybe BTS is brewing something bigger, something beyond our imagination. For example, BTS had been very active with UNICEF. Since the boys first launched the Love Yourself campaign, BTS never stopped advocating advocating for good things and just anything about loving ourselves. Not to mention how many people have been influenced with this amazing movement. Imagine how much more if they do to proceed with a campaign related to the ongoing issue in Ukraine. Armies have been donating themselves even without it. How much more if the boys decide to get involved? I'll surely be one of the biggest donation drives for the cause, I can assure you that. This is the reason why it's not impossible that BTS will collaborate with UNICEF once again. And who knows, maybe it's related with what's going on in Ukraine right now. Last but not least, and number 1, they already made a donation but secretly. If you go over all the points I shared today, you'll understand why I came up with this conclusion. Going back to the fact that the situation is pretty much a controversy in every angle, it's very convenient for BTS to just donate in secret. This way, they'll avoid the media frenzy, and of course, they'll also avoid baseless rumors and unsolicited comments from very nosy netizens. Pointing out Suga's comments in a previous interview about their donation to the Black Lives Matter movement, the rapper actually added this, quote, "Ours are initiatives that any person who wishes to live in a just world would want to pursue. We aren't trying to send out some grandiose message," which pretty much backs up this point all in all. At the same time, it's very likely that the boys chose to be low-key this time around, since they're pretty busy. Attending over the top media people or interviewers who want nothing but to just juice them for something they can twist into their own propaganda or negative narratives is the last thing they want. And to end this very long discussion about this matter, let me share what J-Hope said before. Quote, "We always want to do what we can do to make it a better world, whether in Korea or elsewhere, and go in as much of a positive direction as we can, whether through our music or charity. So don't go around doubting the boys, because if you're a true ARMY, I know for a fact that you understand that BTS is more than just what we read online, and since they have a big heart, they will most likely do everything in their power to extend any help they can give, and they don't even have to share anything about it for us to believe it." Well, what do you guys think? In case you want to know more about the most absurd controversies the boys were involved in, make sure to watch this video. See you next time!